Hello and welcome to another audio analysis. In today's video we're taking a look at the track Surprise Surprise by the Canadian rock band Billy Talent. This was the second single to be released from their fourth studio album titled Dead Silence from 2012. And it was an album that really saw the band make a little bit of a change in their sound from what we did here on Billy Talent 1, 2 and 3, and people absolutely adored it. It was an extremely well received album with a variety of different tracks, sounds and styles, not only just from the singles but from the album as a whole. And the strength of the album didn't stop with just the music. There were some great meanings really engraved into many of the tracks that would feature. So was this track a pleasant surprise or a nasty one? Let's take a look at exactly how it sounds. So this was a song that really did touch on capitalism, really focusing on that idea how you could see just from the visual straight away this idea of this pig-like mayor or person in power that's really kind of controlling things, and really the band trying to combat that through this idea of war and kind of jet fighters and things like that being brought in to really show that. So they did it very well through the visuals, which is something they did across the course of that album. And I love some of these opening lyrics that we do get. You got the look but not the credit. It's this idea of being quite fake as well. They wrote a book on how to sell it, so it's almost like you're being controlled from these upper powers that are telling you how to do certain things, and they're controlling everything. Things like cigarettes, skinny jeans. You've got the money to actually buy these things, but they've got the means to make you buy it. So it's this idea that every step you take is being almost controlled by somebody above the chain, and we see that in a lot of today's world, where every action that you take can be controlled by something that's been told you to do that, or you've certainly not had as much free will and input into what you're doing as you may think.
All you upper class daughters and working class sons, it's hard to save a dollar the way the world runs. You're the target market of a corporate joke. It won't be so ironic when your daddy is broke. Surprise, 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 surprise. You're much better looking when you're in disguise. Surprise, 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 surprise. And this revolution is brought to you by...
And with the actual chorus as well, we do see some interesting lyrics. While this is very catchy with that surprise, surprise, it's almost like that moment of recognition. It does have a kind of dual purpose. First of all, it could look at this idea of corporations, this idea that you much look better when you're in disguise, when people don't see your true intentions. You look at things like, is it Nestle, that had like a lot of dark things going on in the background that you didn't see, and you assumed they were a great company until the kind of everything was revealed. It can also look at this idea of people, this idea of lack of authenticity, and this idea that people are fake. You look so much better when you're pretending to be something that you are actually not, so trying to hide your true self. So it can have this dual purpose, this track, of looking at not just corporations and capitalism, but also we're looking at people as a whole in general, the way that technology has kind of made people want to be like somebody else rather than be themselves.
Just got us down so you can mimic the tortured artist, the jaded cynic. The latest gadget is just a gimmick. Another sucker born every minute. Well, I'm sick of this town bringing me down. A first world epidemic all around. I'm sick of this town bringing me down. A lost generation trying to act profound.
I really do love how some of the lyrics actually do continue to show this idea. The idea of the latest gadget is just a gimmick. You're often sold these new mobile phones and things like that every so often, and it's like they make it sound so much better, even though there's very slight variations between them. You're often still kind of suckered into actually getting these upgrades or these things that you feel are super upgrades to what you actually have, when in real fact there's not often that much change. So that idea of another sucker born every week, you're being sold something you're not really questioning. So we see this idea of just really being a bit of a follower and being a bit of a sheep, just being led along by the shepherd, and that's shown through more and more of the lyrics throughout this track. And the idea of, I'm sick of this town bringing me down, a vast world epidemic all around. And this song was almost written 10 years too early. It has aged like a fine wine with the ideas that it looks at. This idea of a lost generation trying to act profound, this idea that people don't really know what to do with themselves these days. They kind of just follow what the next big person is actually doing, try to emulate that, try to copy that, and really make it work for themselves. So So I love how this song has become more and more relevant with the lyrical side as time has progressed, and musically it features many of the great things that we do see from most Billy Talent tracks. I mean, Ben's vocals are just so unique to him. Ian DeSar's kind of choppy guitars coming in that really just kind of add that really strong pace. It's something the band have always had. They really do some really energetic songs, but without having that super melodic sound. So they don't have to follow a set structure. They're a band that have always managed to just kind of break out of that traditional structure, but still sound very catchy in their music, and certainly very expressive as well, with a lot of these shouted style vocals, with sort of Ian and John really working together in the background to really just kind of add these bouncing vocals between the three of them through the backing and the main vocals from Ben.
You upper class dollars and working class sons. It's hard to save a dollar the way the world runs. We got a counterculture you can buy off a shelf. If you're losing your identity, try somebody else. Surprise, 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 surprise. You're much better looking when you're in disguise. Surprise, 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 surprise. And this revolution is brought to you by those who seem to think we don't care. And those who seem to think we're not aware. Surprise, 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 surprise. You're much better looking when you're in disguise.
I do love with the visuals how they really play on some of the trademarks of the band. Ian DeSar's bulletproof hair almost that just never ever seems to move. It's something iconic very much to him, and I love the way they play on that with the visuals, but also keeping that serious message running throughout. And more of the lyrics, oh, you upper class daughters and working class sons. So this idea that even the people that are maybe in the middle ground can't afford to live. It's hard to save a dollar the way the world runs. So no matter what you do, it can be difficult to save up to your first house and things like that when everything's being controlled and you can't afford anything. You got a counterculture you can buy off a shelf. And I love this lyric because this is another lyric that's aged very, very well. This idea that if you don't agree with something, it's very easy to just go and counterculture it, to kind of challenge it. We've seen that really rise up, certainly over the past sort of 5 years. It's become a much more prominent thing of just everything you do has this counterculture to it. And it's very easy to kind of fit yourself into that mold, because if you're losing your identity, you can just try and take on somebody else's and really emulate and copy them. So a very interesting track that has aged, just like I said before, like a fine wine, in just what the message it carries and how the world has continued to adapt to fit this almost mold of this song.
Oh, you working class daughters and upper class sons. It's hard to save a dollar the way the world runs. We're the target market of a corporate hoax. Our generation is a fucking joke.
And I love how we've got this rich poor, this comparison. It's almost like these two sides that are fighting against each other and not really working in unison, which in most of today's world they actually really don't. And I love how the band just are really kind of to the forefront of their message. Our generation is a fucking joke. They're basically just saying it as it is. They don't kind of filter anything out. It's something the band have always done across most of their albums. They don't just kind of relay the message in this bubble wrap. They just are very much very forward, very direct. And that's one of the things that really makes them a standout band, with kind of the messages they try to convey and really push forward. We're the target market of a corporate hoax. So again, this idea of we're kind of constantly being sold things and we just kind of accept them unwillingly.
Surprise, 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 surprise. You're much better looking when you're in disguise. Surprise, 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 surprise. And this revolution is brought to you by those who seem to think we don't care. And those who seem to think we're not aware. Surprise, 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 surprise. You're much better looking when you're in disguise.
And I actually love that last visual, how it's almost this idea of they're kind of trying to tackle the issue head on, just really Ben crashing into this kind of big ship that the media or the big company corporate style is controlling. So I love the idea of just the ending visual, just you've got to fight them head on. You can't just try and undermine them or anything like that. So some very smart visuals whilst also playing around with that fun side of the band. But it's a track that I love because it's just one of those, when you pull the lyrics apart, you realise how accessible that it is to today. today's audience almost. It really fits in with modern world, despite being a track that is almost 12 years old, or certainly just over 10 years old. So it's great to see how that's kind of been brought in, and it's almost been escalated from the point that the song was actually written, and really carries some very heavy messages. And the musicianship also fits in really well. I like this really choppy guitar that we have got coming in. John really just continually adds these strong bass lines, and obviously Aaron, it was one of the last albums he would feature on before having to kind of go on hiatus while staying with the band. He was always just this really reliable backbone to many of their tracks, and just featured many of the typical elements we would see. I love the way they bounce the vocals between the different band members, with Ian and John working in unison to provide those shouted backing vocals. Really just adds to that Billy Talent style, but primarily just I love the songwriting on this. It's something that Ben's done across many albums. They do carry very heavy meanings, and it really shines through on songs such as this. So that will be everything for today's video, but as always, feel free to let me know your thoughts about this track in the comments section below. Do you agree that the message behind it has really become more relevant as time has gone on? If you haven't also heard many of the band's tracks before, check out some of their other albums. Billy Talent 2 was an iconic album featuring songs such as Red Flag. Even some of their more recent releases in the form of Reckless Paradise are actually really worth a listen for carrying some strong messages within. Also, if you want to see more content like this, then please do feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next Dojo Analysis.